So today is a touch designer intro class. It's gonna be really like a quick overview. What are we gonna do? We're just gonna see the operators and create a simple patch so you can have a sense of the workflow, basically. A couple of words about me. So I'm a creative coder, and I've been studying software engineering. Should be finishing my studies this year, hopefully, if everything works out. Yeah, I've been minting on Hicket since March, so 6 months now. It's been quite a crazy ride, and now currently working mostly with cables.gl. Maybe some people know about it. It's also some kind of node-based programming environment where you can do interactive stuff, but it's mostly for web, so you can integrate it directly with Hicket. So this is basically what I've done like the 2 last weeks, because works well and sells well, and I really like to doing that. But today, touch designer. If you have questions, you can interrupt me, no problems. And if you have other questions, Twitter, Discord, wherever, feel free to contact me. I'm open to everything. My DMs are open, no problems. So touch designer, what is touch designer? It's basically an environment to create amazing stuff, let's say. So creating installations, generative art, smaller applications, whatever you want to do. It has mostly everything you need. So managing data, creating shaders, creating the geometry, 3D geometry, you name it, it has it, and everything in real time.
I will have to interrupt you because I don't know if it's just me, but I can see your video like going in and out. Is it just me, or has anybody else seeing this as well?
For me too.
Okay, it's
quite laggy.
Yeah, it's like
just a second. I will be back.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that should be better.
Let's try. Yes, seems better. Yeah.
Okay. So what I was saying, yeah, touch designer, magic tool for doing everything you want and everything you don't want. Maybe, I don't know. Depends on your desires. Interactive, generative installations, working with video, images, code, whatever. And the main scripting language for the touch designer is Python, so pretty easy to learn, also really useful. But we're just gonna start with doing like really simple stuff today. So I'm just gonna open the software, give a quick overview of the different operator types, and then I will build a patch, let's say. So sharing screen. Here we go. It's okay. So you see my screen, everything's fine.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, this is what you're gonna get if you start Touch Designer for the first time. Once you have done the whole licensing thing, and yeah, basically you have a license for free. It's limited to a resolution of I don't remember, 1080, I think 1080 by 1080 or something like that. Or no, actually it's yeah, I don't remember, but it's enough to create videos and generative art for Hicket, be it static images or be it video images, basically.
Can you still like release commercial stuff with the free version?
As far as I know, I think just rendering the images or the videos is fine, but using it in an installation, like a paying installation, like commercial installation, would say that's not fine. I have personally, I have the student version, and I wouldn't be able to gain money on that either. So. So it's mostly for learning, and once you get at a really commercial stage, well, then you can start looking at licenses. But I mean, for my purpose, I've been doing all right with the licenses I had until now. Touch Designer has a really good integration with NVIDIA physics engine, I think. So you can have actual physics running in there. So fluid simulation or smoke simulation and things like that. So it's really cool. I haven't used that either so much. I'm not there yet. I'm still always learning because, I mean, the deeper you get, the more you see that you don't know anything. So yeah. Second tab, tops, really important. So Touch Designer has three main operators. So it's tops, chops, sops. You're gonna hear that a lot. It's basically coming from Houdini, if you know about the software, which is also a node-based software, but more for 3D rendering. So it's not real time, and it's way more complicated. But Touch Designer is a derivative of Houdini, actually. So they came from the same root. And top, chop, stop is something that you can find also in Houdini. So top basically is everything that has to do with a texture. I'm going to show you at the same time, so it's going to be a bit easier. So I'm going to delete everything. Okay, so textures. Let's say I want a red texture. I'm just going to choose constant. So basically, this is a texture of a certain size with a certain color. That's basically it. Tops, textures. That's the main thing. And inside those tops, you have all the magic that you can do with textures. So one thing, if you work with Photoshop, is some that is really that you probably already used, is those layer modes. So you have add, multiply, over, under, over, and things like that. And you have another operator that is called composite, which basically has all those layer effects inside. I'm going to show you after that. Top, texture, that's it. Then chops. Chops is a different animal. It's basically, how can you say? It's like data. It's like data by time. So it's like waveforms. So music is a waveform, so you have data, a certain amount of data in a certain amount of time, and you have frequencies and all of that stuff. So chops, it's a bit more complicated to understand because it's not something we really use outside of Touch Designer. I haven't seen that much, so it's really specific to this and Houdini, obviously. But I will show you what it is, and maybe it's going to be a bit clearer. Okay, SOPs, 3D objects, and everything related to 3D objects. So creating a sphere, you can do that here. You want a sphere, where's the sphere? Yeah, sphere. You want a cube, take a box. That's it, 3D objects and all the operations that are with it. You also notice that some objects are in a darker color than others. It's basically because I believe it's the ones that are more used. So it's like a kind of visual guiding tool. And if you also, another small tip, if you're searching for a certain operator, you can just type it box, and it will highlight directly the operator you're looking for. So if you search for sphere, here is a sphere. Or you can also type enter, and it's gonna put the sphere directly. Okay. Next, math. So materials. If you work with 3D objects, you should know what it is. So basically, it's all how you shade a 3D object. So yeah, different types of shading, so Phong, PBRs, and then you can go deep with GLSL, or you can just use a wireframe, or you can use point sprites. But it's all there. very useful. The last one is that. So it's basically all the data you get from the operators or from or to the operators. It's in form of either a table or a text file. So the main operators in this case would be a table. So you can input XYZ coordinates, so 3D coordinates in space, and or colors, or define a gradient like that, or well, anything goes. It's very versatile, very useful if you work with data. Also, if you want to grab some, let's say, Meteo data from outside, from a website, you can put it in a table and then work on it later. The great thing is that if you don't know how to code, you can do everything by visually. So you can have a table with a certain data, and then you want to examine the data, or you want to execute a certain expression on all of the data. You can do it, and everything without writing a line of code, almost. And custom. This is a new addition, so I'm not exactly sure what is supposed to be here. Yeah. So, any questions until now? Am I going too fast? Is it all right?
Hello.
Yeah.
I think we don't see your create dialogue on the stream, or maybe some people like it's a different window and it doesn't.
Okay.
People didn't see top, chop, and mat pages, so I just wanted to know if somebody confused.
I only see the node window. Or the
Okay. So you don't see the create dialogue now.
Yes, we don't see.
I see your arrow. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's very weird because okay, that's a problem with Discord. I guess so. So because I have it open right now and you don't see it, but I'm just gonna improvise and do it differently. So I'm just gonna so if you double click, you come onto this create dialog, and you have top, chop, sub, mat, dat. So top is purple textures. Chop, so everything that has to do with channels and channels in time. Then you have subs, which is 3D objects.
We see them now.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, because
we're
I'm putting them on the main work area, but I thought you were seeing the create dialog. It's a bit weird. So materials. So this is yellow. It's materials. Then we have the dat, which is this Bordeaux color. And we're missing the comp. So comp black. And let's say I'm going to put a camera. So here you go. These are the main operators we have. So yeah, comp, everything that is not data. Top, purple, everything that is texture. Chop, everything that is, we can see our data by time. Blue, 3D objects. Yellow is materials. And Bordeaux is data, so everything that can come from the other operators. Okay, so one thing that is interesting with Touch Designer is that you can basically convert from one data type to the other. So let's say, I mean, it works in most of the cases. Sometimes some things are specific, but you can always go from one type of operator to the other. So let's say I want to have this white color as a chop. So you basically click on the purple one, right click, no, double click, and click on. Hang on, where is it? So you have this top, and you double click on the small two elements here, and this is gonna bring you to the create dialog and automatically connect with the node. So in this case, I want to transfer data from the texture operator to the chop operator. So I go to chop and select top 2. So basically now what I have is the white color, and it's decomposed in the RGB and alpha channels. So if I change this color, so if you want to have parameters for your nodes, it's the P shortcut on the keyboard. So now I'm just going to change the color. If we have red, you see that this basically changed, and you have lots of red, no green, no blue, and one alpha transparency is 1 basically, so it's visible. Yeah. Okay. If you want to go from, let's say, a 3D object to a chop, well, it's the same process. So left click on the small 2 thing there. I don't know how it's called. Sub 2, and then you have all the X, Y, Z or 3D coordinates in space of this box. So, and then you can basically work on these 3D coordinates, modify them, add them, transform them, whatever. This is basically what I'm going to show you today. So just a really simple patch, and it's an important concept to have working with touch design, and that's you can go from one type of data to the other. Yeah. Okay, math. Basically, you can only use this with the geometry. So not directly with the geometry node, so with these 3D nodes, but with a comp node that is geometry. So here I'm going to add the geometry comp from the comp tab in the create dialog, and add a material to the geometry that is inside. So when you take a geometry comp out of the comp tab, there's already a torus inside. So there's always already a geometry inside. So either you work with that 3D shape, or another really important concept in Touch Designer is that you can go inside certain nodes or certain operators to change them and make them something else. So I don't want to keep this torus, and I wanna have, let's say, I want to have a cube inside. So either you scroll in, or you double click, and then you're inside this node, and you can see it by, if you check the small URL bar up here. So just below the menu dialog, you have this small project /project1, and now I'm inside geometry 1. So this shows it also. And if you want to go back, either you scroll back, or you double click on project 1, and it brings you back to the root root folder, basically. In this case, I don't want a torus, I want a cube. So I'm gonna delete it. So just click delete, use a cube, and I'm going back again to the root folder. Oh yeah. So if you don't see it, it's because it's not activated. So you have to use those small icons on the bottom right, display and render. So yeah, this is something important to keep in mind. If you do everything right and you don't see them, usually it's because they're not, these options are not activated. So display and render. Then you go up, and here we go. So we have a cube with our material that is added on top of it. So I'm just going to switch from this constant material to a Phong material, so you can see that it's actually a 3D object. So to add materials to, let's say, a 3D object, you can just drag and drop. So you take the Phong node and you drag it and drop it on the Geo node. And then you select material. There we go. So now we have this this material that is applied to the 3D object. And if you want to rotate or see the object in 3D space, you click on the small plus here, which basically activates the viewer or the node, and you can manipulate directly inside. So here we go. And if I change the color here, it's how here we can change. It's red, and yeah. Okay. What was I saying? So yeah. So if you wanna, so I'm going back to the data conversion. So we have a top that is being converted to chop data. So RGBA, sorry. And then what you can do if you want to have this data as a table, you can select so right click on the module, go to that, chop to that, and you will see that we have the RGBA canals of our chop. So it goes from texture to data in time to a table. And each, as you can see, it has theoretically a 256 frames length, which is the resolution of our texture. So if you click on the texture and you go in common, you can see the resolution, which gives the amount of pixels we have in that texture. And so these 256, they are mirrored here. So it goes from 1 to 256. And then you can see here, this table has 256 rows and 4 columns for each color. Yes. And it's the same if you want to go from the box, so from the 3D object to the data, the channel data, so the chop, and to a DAT. So here we have the coordinates of the 4 points of the cube in space, basically. So it's x, y, z. Yeah. So that's basically the main concepts. And you can, in some cases, you can go also from, like, say, from chops to tops, or you can go from DATs to chops to tops. The only thing that doesn't work so much is from 3D objects to, let's say, a texture, so a top, simply because it's just going to render what you have in the viewer. So I can show you. It's not really interesting. So yeah. So if you go from 3D object to a top, it's just going to show you what you have in your viewer, which can be useful sometimes, but it's not really relevant in our case. I know it's a lot of knowledge and lots of things to handle at once. But the more you practice, the more you will understand the difference between these elements and nodes. So, do you have any questions right now? Or? Okay. So what we're gonna do is a really simple patch. and we're gonna displace a sphere with noise, render it, assign a texture, and well, we could either put out a movie or just a static image. So really simple, a simple project gives you the basis of working with nodes. I'm gonna delete everything and start fresh. So close the parameter thing, shortcut P. Okay, so let's think for 2 seconds. What do we need to displace 3D object and render it? So I would say first 3D object. Could be a cube, can be a sphere, can be anything. Then we need a way to basically displace it or distort it, I would say, we could say also, or add some noise to geometry. So it's basically like all distorted. Okay, third thing, we need a way to render it, and then we need a way to put it out as a file. So first step, we need a 3D object. Let's go with a sphere. Okay, we have our sphere. Next thing I'm going to introduce, it's an important, it's a really important concept, and as you're starting with it, it's I think the best concept you need to learn in Touch Designer. It's the use of nulls. So a null is basically an object that has nothing in it. It's just a way to keep connections active when you modify something in between two nodes. Maybe not super clear, but I will show you. So I'm gonna connect the sphere, so just drag and drop with the null. Okay, so the null just mirrors what is inside the sphere. No problems there. I'm just gonna rename it. So if you want to rename it, just click on the bottom bar and rename it. So I'm gonna call it null geo because it's basically the null that has all the geometry data available for us. Okay. Now, next thing, I wanna displace this sphere. So how would I do it? We've seen just before that you can have you can get all the data from this 3D object in another form. So Touch Designer has a way to directly distort 3D objects, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's really performance heavy, and I don't even know why they actually put it inside because they don't even recommend themselves to use it. So I used it maybe once or twice, but I usually avoid it because it's really heavy in terms of computation. I can show it to you, but I wouldn't recommend using it. So if you go into SOP and you can use noise, you can find noise, and you can see it's going to be one of the major pain points in your patch if you use this one. So I'm going to just erase it and let's forget that we ever used it. Okay. So that is one way. What would be the second way? So we saw that we can use this 3D data, transform it into another operator and apply it so it distorts it. The easiest way, and the way I learned it also when I started, is to use a chop. So basically, we take the data from the geometry file, and we transform it into a chop. So right-click on the two bars, chop, stop to. Now you can see we have all the coordinates for the XYZ points inside our sphere. We have how many points? If you click right, on a node, you have this menu that comes up, and there's an info, and you can see how many interesting information. So we have 722 points inside our sphere, which is reflected here. So it's going from 1 to 722. And we want to use this data and distort it so we can have this displacement of the sphere, which looks nice and which it's interesting to use. So first thing first, we use a null. Again, a null, weird concept. I didn't understand it at the beginning, but hang on, you will maybe understand why I'm doing this. So null, how can I call this? Data. Let's call it data. Okay. So right now I'm just taking the data, putting it into a null, and I'm going to convert that null into 3D data again. So right click here, chop to, and here we go. So right now we have the data coming from the 3D object, transformed into a SOP, so a signal, and transformed back to a chop in 3D data again. Yeah, a bit useless, you would say right now. And also one thing, don't forget to connect the output, the input 3D objects to the output. So we have the shading that is coming with it. Okay. Yeah, kind of useless, right? So what do we need to do to displace that? Well, we're just going to add an operator between the SOP2 and the null data. And it's going to be merge. Yeah, I think it should be working. Merge. Okay, so merge basically takes one set of channels and merges it with another set of channels with multiplication, addition, or whatever mathematical function you want to use. So in this case, we want to use some noise. So I'm just going to double click into the chops, take the noise chop. You can see here. And I'm going to rename that. I'm going to rename the channel. So if you want to rename a channel, you select the node, press P to open the parameters windows, and go on channel. So the merge chop operator works by combining the channel that have the same name. So in this case, if I have the noise which has a channel called chan1 and the 3D object with a channel called TX is not gonna combine them. It's gonna consider this as two different channels. So we don't want that. We want have something that's called TX also. Let's say. Okay, so I'm just gonna call it TX channel names. Okay. Then one thing that is important also is that the length of the noise data has to be the same as the length as the 3D object data. So right now you can see, if you right click on it, info, well, it's 600 frames. So we're missing 122 frames. So we need to change this. Again, you can go into the parameters of the operator, click on channel, and you will see there's an end. You have start and end. You have to be careful because this is in seconds. So it Touch Designer works 60 frames per second. So 10 seconds times 60 makes 600, which is the length of our noise basically. But we want to have 722 frames. So you click on your right, you have S, samples, frames, fraction, seconds fraction, and you just click on frames. So it's going to convert from seconds to frames, and you just fill it up. So 722 frames. Okay, so both channels, channel data have the same length now, and we can merge them. So you can guess it's going to merge the TX channels together if we do it properly. So actually, it's not merge. I'm sorry. It was math. Yeah. So for those who didn't see that, replace the merge operator by a math operator. And I'm going to combine the two chops together. So noise chop and the 3D object chop. Okay, there we go. So if you open the parameters from the math chop, you can see channel pre-op, combine channels, combine chops, etc., etc. So if you want to combine the channels, where you go into combine channel, and then you can add or subtract or whatever, but it's not the right one. So combine chops. So you use combine chops, add, yep, exactly, or multiply or whatever. So this does different things, but you can see it basically adds the noise to all the channels of the 3D object, and you can see here it has indeed modified it. So this is I'm currently adding. If I subtract, it looks a little bit different. If I do multiply, it does even differently, etc., etc. So this is kind of things you have to explore, test out, see what works, what doesn't work. This looks cool, actually. Yeah. So I'm just gonna keep dividing. You can see how our 3D object data has been transformed by the noise. So the 3D object data is basically divided by the noise, and out comes this and here. Okay, so now I can come back to why we're using nulls. So if you want to scale the sphere and you don't use a null, well, you kind of blocked right now, because if I had connected this sphere directly to the SOP, I would have no way. I would have to rebuild everything. I couldn't put I would need to do a sphere transform node and then reconnect this transform node to the SOP node, which is not so convenient. So now I can just add a transform operator between the sphere and the null geo, and transform it. So basically, this null concept is just there to make your programming more efficient, and you can add you can add any node you want in between the let's say the geo node and the null node, without disrupting the rest of the infrastructure, of the architecture of your software. So it's a way to iterate very fast and yeah, basically work faster and work less but smarter, let's say. So I want to scale this initial sphere, so I just scale it. So uniform scale. You can see how now it's scaling. It's not very visible but if you watch closely, the units are changing here. So on the XYZ bars. So I'm going from 1 and it changes, it's bigger and getting bigger and bigger. So I'm multiplying the scale by 10, and yeah, and it goes from, it changed it basically. Okay, so we have the geometry, we have the displacement. Now, how do we render it? Okay, so next thing to do, again, you use a null between the chop to, and whatever you want to connect after. So you can always connect another node in between. We call this null mesh. Yeah, next tip: always rename your nodes if you're using nulls, because it's just some really basic things that you need to learn directly when you use it. So it's easier to work in the future. Because if you have to come back and you learn certain practices and it's not good, and then you get lost in your network. Because node programming is cool, but it can get very messy very quickly if you don't structure everything. All right, anyway. So I have my 3D data again, and I want to render it. So right click on the two bars, go into the comp black bar, create dialog, and select geometry. Okay, we have our geometry here. That's cool. You can activate the viewer, check a bit how it looks, zoom in, whatnot. If you're lost inside the 3D view, you can click H, and it's gonna recenter to wherever you see. Because sometimes you get lost and you don't even know where you are, so it's H. It's important. Okay, so what do we need for what components do we need for a 3D object to be rendered? Let's think. Camera. Yeah. Okay. We need some lights, and we need a material for our 3D object. Okay, let's add that. So double click, create OP, create dialog. Let's add a camera. Okay, we have a camera, and we want to add a light. Okay, let's again double click, comp, add the light, and you would think this is it. No, we need to render it actually. So double click again, you go into the top, and you click and you use the render node, and it's going to connect with the cam, geo, and light nodes automatically. Okay, you can see it's not looking very interesting because our camera is really like super close. Our object is massive. So either we put the camera a bit backwards, or we reduce the scale of the sphere. So I'm going to go for the second option, reduce the scale. Yeah, from uniform scale 10, we go to 1. Up. And here we have, where is it? Yeah, it's not looking too good still, so we need to zoom out a bit. Okay, so you go into the camera. Oh, now I lost it completely. See, this is the kind of things that happen if you get lost. So yeah, one important thing that you need to know is if you activate the geo comp, so click on view active and turn around, it's not going to change the camera position inside your scene, because you're basically just looking at the geometry. But if you do the same with the camera operator, well, you're gonna actually change the position of the camera, and you're gonna change how it's being rendered. So if you see, I have activated the camera comp, and I'm turning around, and you can see it's actually updating. Maybe I'm not sure the resolution is good on Discord, but here I'm rotating around it, and you can see it changes it. So you can change the camera position either by going in the parameters of the comp, so by clicking P, and you can see you have translate, rotate, scale, pivot for all 3 axes. So I'm just gonna put it back to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, so 0, 0, 0. Okay. Now we're super up close, so I'm just gonna go backwards on the Z scale, on the Z axis. If you can also, if you don't want to type, you can click with the scroll button directly on the this, and you will have a menu with 001, 01.1, 110, and basically if you select .1, it's gonna move your number by the amount you selected. So if I choose 1, it's gonna go from 19 to 20 to 21. And now I'm just zooming out, so we have a bit more view of our object. It looks fancy. Yeah, it looks pretty cool already. Okay, we're missing one tiny thing, so I'm just going to move the light to the up so we have a bit more space for our material. Double click, matte, and I'm going to add a Fong material. So simple Fong material, drag and drop. It's white. You don't see a lot. I'm just going to change it to. We can set it to red. Yes. Yeah. Why do we see the black? It's because our object is, some faces are outside, some faces that are inside are outside. So yeah, this is really specific to the way we've done it here. So don't worry, it's completely normal if you see that. If I change in the matte shop, the way of combining the channels, it's going to be different. So yeah, it's tiny, so it's not so good. On camera. Yeah.
Can you make it double-sided?
Double-sided meaning? Because it's a 3D object, so you have basically inside and you have outside.
Yeah,
so,
double-sided meaning it can render the inside as well.
Yeah, that's probably a way to do that. Yeah, there's probably there's definitely a way. I don't know right now, but yeah, you can do it. Oh yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to the divide mode because this one looks the best. Putting the camera back where it was, so 200 something. Yeah. Okay. So we have our cool object. Looks pretty good, and we want to animate it. Okay. There's a couple of ways to do that. The one that I'm going to show you for this is we're going to animate basically the noise. So yeah, by the time. So we could do it like this. So if you go into noise, you have seed, period, harmonics, etc. So we're gonna animate the period. So basically, is it correct? Actually, I don't know. I'm not super math guy, so sometimes I get a bit lost. No, it's not period. How do we animate this? Yeah, we're gonna animate it with transform actually, because if you, yeah, correct. Okay. All right. So to animate, you go to transform into the noise, and you see there's translate, and there's a little plus if you go on the left, and it brings up all the 3 coordinates, so tx, ty, tz. What we want to do is translate on the z-axis, which is going to be the easiest, and now we have to type a little piece of code, which is important. Let me check if there's another way. Maybe this is easier. Okay, yeah, we can do it like that. Okay, so we I just added. I'm just going to add a new operator that's called timeline from the chop, and basically reflects the timeline that you see on the bottom. So see goes up, and we have a timeline that is looping in 600 frames. So this reflects it. We're going to use add a null because we're going to do some operations on this timeline, but for now we keep it like this. So add a null, call it a null timeline or whatever you want to call it. And now comes in something that is also very important in Touch Designer is how do you make data? How do you animate variables? So we have our translate variables, and we want to use this frame number to animate the TZ axis. Okay, so you click on the null timeline. You click on the plus, so it activates, and you see if you go on this, it's going to go green. So you drag the frame onto the noise one, and then you're going to have this menu where it's like export the various components, and we want to animate on the translate parameter. So we're going to go export translate. Oh, and see, this is how our noise is getting animated on its own. And you can see that noise is animated, so it animates our math chop, animates the data, and in the end, animates our object. Well, that's kind of fast, right? That's not, yeah, it's not super nice. So what do we want to do? We can see that this timeline goes from 0 to 600 in 60 frames per second. So it's basically taking 10 seconds to go from 0 to 600. If we want to make it slower, well, we just add math between the timeline and the null timeline. So a math chop. And then you go into where is it? Yeah, you go into the parameters, multi-add, and there you see multiply. So we're going to multiply it by 0.1, I would say. And you can see this is already slower. So we're gone from this, which is pretty fast, to this, which is way slower. Yeah, it's not slow enough. So we're gonna even go lower. So 0.01 maybe is better. Yeah, that looks already better. Okay, that's pretty good. And how? So we have our patch done. So we have the geometric data here in blue. We have the geometric data that it has been transformed into channel data, distorted by the noise, distorted and animated by the noise, put back into a 2D object, and sent out to render. And now we can either render it or we can add filters on that texture because render is a texture. So basically we're rendering our 2D objects that is displaced to a texture. So if you want to just render it out, you double click on the you right click on the two bars and add a movie file out. And then you can see there's like various things. So movie, image sequence, subframe movie, etc., etc. So if you want to export it, you go to movie and basically press record, and here's your video of your thing. But the nice thing is you can add more effects in between. So obviously, this is already looking nice, but we're missing a background. So in the video, it's probably going to be black, not so interesting. Do we want to add some contrast? Do we want to add? Do we want to change the colors? Do we? I mean, with textures, everything is possible. So it's also most performant way of working. So in Touch Designer. So maybe it's not too relevant right now because you're learning, but texture are basically the best operator in Touch Designer. You can do mostly everything with textures, and it's getting better and better. So textures work on the GPU while channels work on the CPU, and usually the GPU is way more powerful, or it works in a different way than the CPU, so it's much more performant, and you can have bigger, better interactive stuff with things that work on the GPU, so with TOPS. All right. So going back to this, we want to add a background to this. So right click on, I'm just going to add a null. So render null. I'm just going to call it null render. Okay. So I want to add a background. So you click on the connection between the null, the render, and the null render. Right click, insert operator, and transform. Why transform? Because it's the easiest way to add a background. I don't know why they put it inside there, but it's the way it is. So transform P, and you can see first thing, background color, comp over background color. So in this case, we want, let's say, purple. We have to change the alpha from 0 to 1, and comp over background color. And here we go. We have a nice purple background. Okay. What do we want to do next? Well, we could add some contrast or some whatever. Or we could do an edge. Maybe we could edge that out. So here you can see if you add edge, well, it's gonna basically draw the edge or the edges of your 3D object. That's an example. I'm gonna delete that again. No, actually, let's keep it. I'm gonna add the edge, so I can show you also how to compose two layers together. So we have the transform, which adds the background. We have the edge, which transforms which adds the edges of the 3D object. And what happens if we want to combine the red and the render with the edges? Okay. Yeah, exactly. So here you can see it's basically applied to the 2D objects. And it should be applied here. Yeah, it's applied here, but it's completely distorted because of the UVs. So, but yeah, this is basically how it works. But it kills the levels. So I'm just going to bring that. Yeah, and that's it. And then now I can show you also again why I'm using nulls. So if I've connected this directly to the material, now I would have to disconnect it and reconnect it. So now I can just add an operator in between. Let's say I want to push the saturation. So I'm going to use HSV adjust, push it to the max, change the color. Well, let's make it blue. Here we go. Everything is still connected. You just added a node and it works like a charm. You don't need to do anything else. And here you have your texture applied on the 3D object. Yeah.
Oh, it's nice. Great. Thank you.
No problems. Any other question? Or anything else you want to learn? Should I show you something else? Well, we have like 20 minutes left, so. Nope.
As you asked for, can you teach us really simple and simplistic way, as this is a beginner class, how can we apply in this example you are giving us some kind of video feedback technique or something like that, if you can.
I can show you. I'm not sure you're gonna understand though, but I can definitely show you because I'm gonna share the patch also later. So yeah, so you can decompose also what will happen. So video feedback, yeah, really nice technique. I use it a lot. It's one of the best techniques in touch designer ever for textures. So we have our comp here, and we have our node. So I'm just putting them, separating them, and right-click, insert operator, and you have this feedback node. Okay, right now it doesn't do anything because there's no texture feeding back. So you need definitely a composite because you need to composite the initial texture with the fed back texture, and you need to you need to compose them both. Okay. So right now it doesn't feed back because we need to feed this back into the feedback basically. So you just drag and drop this comp tree into the feedback, and you can see this small dotted line, which basically means that the resulting texture is being fed back, and we have a really basic feedback loop. Obviously, the texture is being fed back on top of the other texture, and we have a multiply node, so it gets dark. So what happens? We need to change from multiply to add, and it looks already like this. But you can see now the pixels are adding themselves on top of each other. So when you do that, basically all you get is white, right? So you need to add, well, the texture coming from the feedback needs to be a bit transparent, so you have space basically for the new pixels to come on top and so they disappear. So you just add a level node here. You go into post and you put a 0.9 for the opacity. And you can see here we have a really basic feedback loop. If I put it at 0.99, it's even more explicit. And that's the really basic feedback loop. After that, it's really a question of working with the feedback, trying all the nodes in between those two nodes. I can show you if I add like a saturation node, so HSV adjust. Right now it doesn't do anything because it's not set up. But if I change the hue offset, hey, things happen. So basically, every time the texture is fed back, it changes the hue by this amount, and it changes it 60 times per second. So that's why you have this like kind of scintillating effect.
Wow, it's looking great in my opinion, man. It's looking awesome now.
Thank you. I'm just gonna save so have it. Yeah, and yeah, that's it. That's a really basic feedback loop, and obviously, what works with animated textures works with video. So you can do the exact same thing. Yeah. And yeah, that's it. Any other technique you want to learn?
Sorry, I'm keeping asking questions because I use Touch Designer a lot in my creations, and I'm the person that I'm following every tutorial on YouTube I can, and I'm just trying and experiment it all. Just like I learned it by myself, you know, and it's really cool to have you here that give us some insights and stuff like that. I see a lot of tutorials that people uses a lot of Python expressions among with Touch Designer, right? And
Correct.
can you give us a really simple example on how this actually works? I see people using this to animate stuff and things like that. And
Okay.
just a briefly insights on that, please.
So basically, the simplest Python expression you can use in Touch Designer is doing what we did with the time, basically. So connecting the null timeline with the noise. So I showed you like the simplest way to do it, but there's another way to do it. Right now you can see it's green, and it's green here, which means it's being exported. But you can actually reference the data from one operator inside another operator instead of exporting it. There's just different ways. I think exporting is a bit faster, but that's not really very relevant in our case. So I'm just gonna delete this or remove it, remove the link between the null timeline, so the time display and moving the noise. And I'm gonna show you how to connect both of them. And this is like the easiest Python stuff. Okay, so if I click on constant, now the link is severed between the null timeline and the noise. How do I connect both of them? Well, so we saw that we want to connect TX with the null timeline. So it goes like this: OP, so O for operator. You select the operator. So in our case, it's null timeline. And this is the name of our timeline. And we want the channel frame. Is it going to work like this? No, it doesn't. Yeah. And this is how we connect both of them. And it's exactly the same if you want to say, let's say, what could we connect? We have something else we could connect. Oh yeah, we could connect. Let's say we wanna animate the hue offset the hue offset with the time. So we do exactly the same. We go inside the hue offset, open the parameter, and type this. So OP parentheses quote. So null timeline. So it references the null timeline operator, and then we reference the channel. So frame was the name, I think. And here now we have basically the null timeline animating our hue offset. Does it work? Yeah, it's really slow, so it's not that visible, but yeah. And this is how you can connect all the parameters together with other parameters. And once you start doing that, you just go into a world of I'm never gonna come out of my home again because there's so much to explore.
That's right. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problems. Okay. Any last questions? Maybe, I mean, we have, I don't know if some of you come back for next week, but maybe if you want to work on a patch or do some work or whatever, and we can review that next week if this is an option, or if you're interested in it, I'm really open to it. Else I can teach you like more techniques or things like that. I mean, it's up to you because I haven't planned anything right now for the second session, right? So.
I remember there was a way passing these Python parameters, but you would click and drag and drop, but I don't remember how was it. Can you show it?
Sure. So click and so this is basically you go to the operator, you click plus, so you activate the operator, and then you see it's going green, and then you drag this operator to, let's say, I'm going to use transform. You click to the parameter you want to animate. So I want to animate the scale, and you use chop reference. So you can see now it's, yeah, the sphere is being basically animated on the y-axis by this. And if you click on here, you're gonna see it's exactly the same code as I have written in the other one. So there's these two ways of doing it.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, back to my question. What do you want to learn? Do you have some specific desires or things? You want me to do more video feedback, more texture effects, more 3D objects, more data-driven stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, some texture top stuff like kind of shaders, like effects, that kind of stuff could be fun.
Okay. I'm gonna go like the simple texture programming because I think shaders is a bit outside of the scope, but I can definitely do that. So next week we work mainly on textures, texture effects. I can show you some feedback techniques, what looks cool, what I do, and yeah, basically optimization tricks maybe also if we have time.
Somatic, would you share the file with us?
Yeah, sure. Not a problem. That's why I saved it.
Version. I think there's some kind of VR mode with this, right? Or
yeah, there is actually a whole TD VR thing. To be honest, I haven't used it, so I cannot really tell you much about it. Yeah. I would use I'm not sure how VR how it works well with Touch Designer. For this kind of stuff, I would rather be inclined to use like a game engine, Unity or Unreal Engine, I think. But it's worth a try. So yeah.
Yeah, this was super interesting. I've only used Houdini at work, so I never even heard about Touch Designer. So this, and I've done some like video editing on DaVinci Resolve, so it's interesting to see like if I can do the same stuff here.
Oh yeah,
like
sure.
Edit and transform videos and.
I mean, editing like you know it from Fusion is not going to be directly possible because that's not really how Touch Designer works. But you can like crop the videos or select a single frame of it or mix up the how the frames are, what the order of the frames. They play them backwards or etc. etc. So
I mean more like adding some kind of like effects on top of the video or.
Yeah, that works. Texture is a texture, yeah. So you can do video feedback really easily with that.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So I guess this is it for today. If you have any questions, suggestions during the week, feel free to write to me. You know where to find me, Twitter, you know, I'm pretty active, so, or Discord also.
Thank you. That was super great. Sorry for being silent.
No problems. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
You're welcome. All right, then have a great week and see you next week.
You too. Goodbye. Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Ciao.